It is the Blitz here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. He is Joe Reinagel. I'm Jason Minix. RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com.
Playing the fake drums there.
Absolutely.
Wow.
He always is. Why not? RJ, none of us expected the Cowboys to go beat the 49ers, and I, for one, said that the Cowboys weren't going to ruin my Sundays and Mondays this year because my expectations were low. And I really didn't get mad until I heard Mike McCarthy talk Monday afternoon. Then I started to get really pissed at what I'm seeing from the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, I agree with that sentiment almost entirely, except I'm so numb and comatose that nothing anybody says can upset me at this point. What can upset me is what you freaks posted on your Instagram with Joe's feet. I have no idea what, is going on in that building these days.
RJ, you're the right person to ask here since you just brought it up and we just posted it. RJ Ochoa on the Buyers Barricades guest line on the San Antonio Sports Star Instagram. And you're the most detail living in the real world person I know that just takes everything to the nth degree. So you're the right guy for this. Reinagel claims that he can flip people off with his feet using his toes. And I called BS on that. And if you look closely at those feet pictures that are posted on the San Antonio Sports Star Instagram, it's his second toe that is kind of erect.
Just let him look at it first before you explain.
Nobody has a foot fetish like you and Rex Ryan, so I don't know that he's going to look at it in this detail.
He's got to look at the close-up.
But it's not the middle toe that's kind of erect. It's the second toe. That's not really flipping somebody off.
I wish that you had chosen a different word other than erect, I didn't zoom in. I have no interest in doing that. I just scrolled past because I didn't want it on my phone.
Well, there's a poll there. You got to vote in the poll.
I don't think it's anatomically possible to do that, Joe. I actually in my freshman year health class in high school, it was a big discussion about whether you could lift just your big toe like forward and back and separate it from your other four toes. That is, like the talented human beings can do that. But this claim that you can orchestrate your middle toe or whatever is about as all in as the Dallas Cowboys are.
Well, I'm telling you, RJ, if you don't look at it, you have no right to make an opinion. So you have to actually look at it. The middle toe
and the other three are curled under, and it's your second toe that's pointy. That's not flipping somebody off.
Well, it is.
It's got to be
in my world. It is.
It's the middle finger.
Yeah. Let me.
Have you
go ahead.
Put your middle knuckle on the ground, like put your hand down, and then try to lift your ring finger. It's impossible. Put your middle knuckle on the table and try to lift your ring finger. You can't do it.
I can do it.
You can't.
Well, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm doing it.
Whatever.
All right.
That's your question. Let's do this.
Maybe you can't do it.
Hand tricks at 9 p.m. here on the Blitz.
All right, RJ, I've got to ask you a question because Jerry Jones, in his radio interview the other day, said that Dak Prescott should not be running with the football. Nobody wants to see that because quarterbacks that run get hurt. I think that's an excuse for Dak being hurt already and he can't run. What do you think?
I think that's an aggressive assumption, but I will say, I haven't agreed with Jerry Jones on much of anything for a long time now. I do understand the kind of genesis of this thought. We all have lived the seasons where franchise quarterbacks have gotten hurt, and it casts you into a purgatory that loses people jobs and changes the foundation of who you are as a team. So I understand the reluctance and the hesitance there. There is a level of cutting your nose off to spite your face, and I think we're at a point of timidity, whether it is orchestrated by Dak Prescott to your assumption, Joe, or if the call is coming from inside the house the way Jerry kind of made it sound like. Dak has 10 rushing attempts through 7 games, the lowest he's ever had through the first 7 games of any year of his career. In fact, he had more in the 5 games that he didn't finish in 2020 when he had that ankle injury. And obviously that came on a play where he was running. If you look at all quarterbacks who started the first 7 games of this season for teams, and obviously that weeds out some quarterbacks, there are 24 that fit that criteria. 22 of them have more rushing attempts than Dak Prescott. Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, And so you are really limiting your offense by not encouraging him to run. No one's saying he has to be Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson, but beyond all of that, what's particularly asinine is to announce to the world that you have no intention of doing that so that Mike McCarthy can call an RPO on Sunday in Atlanta and nobody pays any respect to the run option.
Well, and again, they don't have a running game to speak of with running backs or a quarterback. They're anti-running the football. I think I don't know how healthy he is. And again, you can flash back to the boot in Mexico and make more of a big deal out of it. I go back to something else that Jerry Jones said in that interview on Tuesday. He tries to clarify, if you take him for his word, that he meant all in was about getting Dak and CD done. So if he knew that all in when he made that initial comment and then waited for CD and Dak, this is by design, because if he signs those contracts early, then he's got money freed up to invest in this year's roster. By waiting, he can go with the excuse that he didn't have any money. They didn't have any money under the cap to go get a Derrick Henry or anything. So he waits, basically making it impossible to spend in free agency. The idea that they're not willing to look at any trades. They're not willing to invest in this roster. They've got their quarterback, a receiver. They'll sign Micah Parsons. And I think we see wholesale changes, and you're looking at 25, 26, 27, where they're actually going to try to win. This year is not about winning for the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree with like 67% of that. That is the prediction that I offered to Rob back in the morning huddle days that I was a part of, was that the Cowboys were going to say that paying their guys these franchise, market setting deals was their version of being all in. Where I would push back is that even if you do believe that that was the genesis of the thought, that didn't hinder them from being able to spend in free agency. They could have spent them. They could have signed Dak and CD at any point and still spend. They could have delayed spending them the way they did and still spend. And they're banking on people believing that they couldn't have. These poor, just the poor front office for the Dallas Cowboys. They're so stuck. And I mean, they really just are up against it, and we should pity them and give them all of our money. And I think where I ultimately, I don't want to say disagree, but I don't think there's a plan. Like what you're offering, Jason, insinuates or implies that there is some level of long-term thought, long-term analysis, long-term planning. I don't think that that's the case at all. I think all in was a thing he said, and whatever repercussions, came from that or continue to come from that are whatever. And they'll go away today and tomorrow and whatever. And if they don't, then who cares? Like, we're all just dancing around in the circus at this point.
Well, and there's got to be some sort of plan, right? And I just think that they're going to draft and develop. They figure they've got Dak, they've got CD. If they sign Micah, which everybody assumes they're going to do, and they're just hoping that these young guys step up and do something. Because even with money next year, do you really see them going out and being big players in free agency?
No, because they don't have to. I mean, I hate being the all the Cowboys care about is the dollar guy. But why they care about the draft? Like, that's the party line. Like, it's because they have to do the draft, right? Like, they can't forego the draft the way they forego free agency. They can't, ignore it when it's their turn to pick a player when they're on the clock. So they do that and they act that way because they literally have to be involved per NFL rules. But I mean, if I believe that they bought a window for anything, it's for people to blame new people. All they did was flip the hourglass upside down. Now it's Dak's making all this money. C's making all this money. The pressure has to be on them. They have to rise above. And to be clear, they both have to play better. Dak is playing awful. This is the worst Dak Prescott we've ever seen. So multiple things can be true in this sense, but they are only interested in creating targets that can distract the attention and all the hot, whatever it is, away from them and onto other people. And by delaying all the contracts and whatnot, they create the mystique that these players are greedy and whatever the case may be. And they'll do the same thing to Micah. They'll do the same thing to Tyler Smith. They'll do the same thing to Monty Smith if we ever somehow get to that point in time. They are only interested in other people taking blame for their
thoughts on the comments that Trayvon Diggs made on the Micah Parsons podcast, where they were so glowingly talking about Dan Quinn and how he motivated guys, and you would run through the wall and the atmosphere that he created. Now, they might have just been propping up DQ. but man, it certainly felt like they were taking major shots at Mike Zimmer.
The Mike Zimmer hire was something that happened when we were all together in Las Vegas. And if you don't recall, either of you, I have no problem reminding you that I was not interested. It felt lazy. It felt boring. It felt like, well, he's already in the HR system. We don't have to, go through the onboarding process. Like, we can save some time and energy there. And that's where, again, like, I think it was just, they woke up one day and said, hey, why don't we try Mike Zimmer? And it is, dude, they are bad. Like, they're not bad. Like, they're capital B-A-D bad. They look like their defensive coordinator hasn't been in the game for several years, because that is the case. And I will reiterate to people that the only other candidates who they seriously considered, per reports, were Rex Ryan and Ron Rivera. That's it. And it wasn't until those names emerged that everybody got on board with Mike Zimmer, because nobody wanted those two other dudes. And so, yeah, I mean, it isn't a great look that they're all in or whatever. I don't mean to be ironic there on Dan Quinn. And obviously he's their guy and whatnot. And he's the guy that they all, that Mike at least only knew. Trayvon played one season before Dan Quinn arrived, but that he's with a division rival, that the Cowboys are so bad. Like, all of this is just a really big yuck fest. And I don't fault them for having a podcast or talking about whatever they want to talk about, but it does stir all of this in ways that are really, really, really starting to annoy people.
Yeah, I think Zimmer's the only guy that's going to sign a one-year contract, and that's the only thing that they're going to do, because all of those guys are going to be gone after this season. There will be a complete new coaching staff next year when we gather for training camp.
I don't see how anybody disagrees with that. And the whole fact of that is very frustrating. I mean, because I think we knew that in February. And so why burn this year? Why waste this time? I mean, why stir the pot like this?
And this year isn't about winning. This is the plan for Jerry Jones.
I mean, but people say that all the time, and I think that's really stupid. And I'm not saying that about either of you.
Yeah, you are.
People say, like,
I got you.
Well, but people say, like, oh, well, they're clearly setting McCarthy up to fail. Why would they need to do that? Like, they could just fire him. Like, why? What is what goal is achieved in setting him up to fail? And that's where, I call the most BS on their propaganda that they would do anything to help the team win. Because my position at the time was, you either have to extend Mike McCarthy or fire him, back obviously when last season ended. And we can sit back in retrospect and argue whether or not he should have been extended. But even if you had extended him, and even if everything else played out identically, and you wanted to fire him right now, you could have. There's no salary cap. There's no penalty. There are no repercussions. You could have fired him and just made that problem go away with money. But that reinforces the idea that they care about that bottom line. They care about that bottom dollar. And the main reason that Mike McCarthy is here isn't because they do or don't care about winning. It's that they don't have to pay two different coaches, head coach salaries simultaneously.
RJ Ochoa from VloggingTheBoys.com here on the Blitz. RJ, Atlanta this weekend. How did they go in there and get a win?
I think I'm going to pick the Cowboys this week. I mean, look, man, Atlanta is really bad. I mean, they're kind of good, but they find ways to muck things up in ways that would impress even the Cowboys. And so this does kind of feel like I don't even want to call it a get-right game, but a chance where Dallas goes in and maybe benefits from some of that Falcons chaos, one of those weird games in the noon window that's part of the witching hour that Scott Hansen is losing his mind over. I will say, if Bijan Robinson goes off, and he probably will, because he excels in runs under center, and that's where the Cowboys defense is particularly, to say bad again is being somewhat kind. But if they can contain him, and the Falcons do a great job of that on their own, they like to avoid handing him the ball. And those are the kinds of things that I think work in Dallas' favor. It is worth mentioning that if they lose this game and they fall to 3-5, there are only 35 teams in all of NFL history who have won 3 or fewer of their first 8 games and made the playoffs. That list does include the 2018 Dallas Cowboys, but there are over 700 teams that have won 4 of their first 8 games or more, or fewer, I should say, that have made the playoffs. So the swing difference is massive here if you win or lose this game.
Yeah, well, the way the NFC is, even if they go 4-4, I'm not betting on the Cowboys making the playoffs this year. And really, why bother? Because they're not going anywhere. And the other thing you got to worry about and we saw it with George Kittle, is Kyle Pitts. I mean, the Cowboys didn't have an answer for Kittle. What makes you think they're going to have an answer for Pitts?
I agree with you, certainly. But George Kittle is just I hate the term Cowboy killer because everybody kind of is, so it's not specific to any one person. But George Kittle kind of relishes in it. I mean, think about the performance he had last year in the game. He had 3 touchdowns, whatnot. He had that crazy catch in the playoff game 2 years ago when Dallas went up there. So I think that George Kittle's kind of in his own box. Like, Kyle Pitts is still a little bit of a name. Like, Kyle Pitts still has yet to really arrive from a production standpoint in the NFL. So I wouldn't put him quite on that plane. Like I said, if anybody worries me, it's Bijan Robinson, because couldn't you see the Texas boy, flashing the hook'em after just like a 214-yard, 3-touchdown performance against the Cowboys while Zeke has 21 yards on 19 carries or something like that?
Yeah, I can see that.
He's not going to carry the ball 19 yards. He would need a stretcher to get out of that building.
It is. I mean, the Zeke thing is, I feel so bad. Like, I don't enjoy tweeting these statistics, but they're the truth and they're reality, and that's my job. But he is one of the most ineffective running backs ever in Dallas Cowboys franchise history. I mean, like, literally ever. If you just using this season, it is quite bad. This is worse than any of us could have possibly imagined. But
Joseph Randall would like a word.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, I wouldn't mind a Joseph Randall
about
now.
Right?
Well, you can ask Joseph, I guess, about Joe's middle toe situation, whatever. I don't know what conversation or what y'all were doing to where that became something that you wanted to talk about, or how Joe's feet became.
Joe's got a Rex Ryan-like foot fetish. I mean, we could just leave it at that.
Just let me know what you think, RJ. That's all I want.
He wanted to go quadruple bird. And I said, how do you do that? He said he can flip people off with his toes. It was actually a very innocent.
You can do them both simultaneously?
Simultaneously,
he can do
RJ. Yes.
Foot. 1 foot. There's no middle toe.
I can do all 4 at the same time.
It's not a middle toe.
What kind of chair or seat are you in that you're in a position to do that?
Well, Deshaun Watson showed me the happy baby, so I can do that.
Oh, wow. Good Lord.
Yeah. I think you need a pair of socks, and like the kind that go up to your knees, so that there's no chance of your toes coming in front of anybody. Like, we don't want that at all. Ever.
Just think happy baby and toes, RJ. Have a great dinner, my friend.
I hope that you eat a bowl of ice cream. That's what I really, a bowl, not a cone, not a cup, but a bowl. And a plastic one, so the spoon isn't clinging and clanging. That's the most annoying thing when somebody in your household does that.
RJ Ochoa, who is easily annoyed on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and read all this stuff at bloggingtheboys.com. Appreciate you, RJ. We'll talk to you later.
Survivor tonight. I know y'all are pumped.
Yeah,
sure. RJ Ochoa and all our guests on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond, online at buyersbarricades.com.